Good morning. I'm Leslie Thatcher. 8:06 on this Wednesday. It's August 11th. We've got on the phone with us ABC meteorologist Cesar Cornejo. Good morning.
Good morning, Leslie. We continue to see some better improvements for our air quality as we continue to see winds making their way out of the north and a little bit more as a northwest flow, so that continues to help us out a lot. It'll just leave us with some patchy smoke, if that at best. We'll see also temperatures warming as we have high pressure really settling in over the Great Basin for us. We'll see a high of 81 today. By tonight, we'll be mostly clear with a low of 56. Heading into Thursday, we'll see better conditions even yet. So we'll continue to see clearing and improving air quality. We'll have a high of 86 with a sunny sky. And going into Thursday, again, high pressure continues to stay over us. So we'll see mostly clear skies and a low of 59. Friday, we continue to see all of that great air quality and better conditions overall. We'll see that we have sunny skies, a high of 86 as we continue to stay on the warm side. Also, going into Friday night, we'll see a bit of clouds hanging around, but a low of 60. Going into Saturday, we're expecting to see another hot one as we expect to see a high of 88 degrees, and again, sunshine will be plentiful for us to start off the first half of the weekend. Going to Saturday night, we can expect to see some cloud cover once again, not a lot of it, so we'll see a low of 60 also for us. Sunday, we'll continue to see that storm chances increase as we have monsoonal moisture making its way back in, so showers and thunderstorms can be possible over the higher elevation towards the afternoon hours. We'll see mostly sunny skies and a high of 85. Sunday night, we'll see that the showers and thunderstorms start to taper off as soon as the sun starts to set and we lose our heating, and we'll continue with partly cloudy skies and a low of 59. Monday, we continue the storm chances going into the day, and we'll see partly sunny skies for us. Again, we'll have a high of 82 for us. Going into Monday night, again, as soon as the sun goes down, we'll see less storm chances, but we'll have some showers continuing for us also with a low of 56. Going into Tuesday, we have a better chance of some showers and thunderstorms continuing for us, partly sunny skies to start off the morning and going into the afternoon hours, and then we'll see a high of 75. From the Pinpoint Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Cesar Cornejo. Back to you, Leslie.
Okay, thanks, Cesar. Well, stay tuned. Coming up in the local news hour this morning, I'll be checking in with the co-presidents of the Park City Education Association, Jake Job and Mary Morgan, talking about the mask banning issue that was issued by the state legislature and concerns with school starting next week. Then author Stephanie Land, she'll be presenting at the Eccles Center Saturday night, August 14th. And a final Summit County Health Department update with retiring Health Department Director Rich Bullo. Later on the Mountain Life, today's guests are Dr. Neil Bernard, author of the book Your Body in Balance, The New Science of Food, Hormones, and Health, and Callum Clark, the Chief Operating Officer at the Utah Olympic Legacy Foundation, updates us on the status of the Salt Lake winter bid for either 2030 or 2034. Stay tuned.
When you tune into KPCW, you won't miss a beat on what's happening in our community. From local news to announcements and our public affairs shows, we keep you informed and entertained. And now's the time where your donations ensure that the beat goes on. Be sure to get involved in our Summer Pledge Drive, August 16th through the 19th. For more information, head on over to kpcw.org. We love our listeners and bringing you the best of local community radio right here on KPCW Park City.
And in a quick recap from yesterday's primary election here in Park City, we've got City Council member Nan Worrell facing off with Andy Bierman for the mayor's job. And the top four vote getters for City Council who move on to November's election are Tana Tolley, Jeremy Rubel, Tim Henney, and Thomas Purcell. On the east side of Summit County, the unofficial primary election results also in for Colville and Oakley. In the race for Colville mayor, it'll be Mark Marsh and Lynn Wood going on to November. And then the top four candidates for the two city council seats will be Louise Willoughby, Stephanie Bowen, Christopher Horn, and Drew Robinson. In the race for Oakley City Council, those who go on will be Councilmember Kelly Kimber, Clayton Page, incumbent council member Steve Wilmoth, and then the fourth place finisher there, too close to call right now, Marissa Dillman receiving 71 votes, but Jane Sorensen Lewis garnered 70 votes. And in Wasatch County, in the primary election for Danielstown, Scott Kohler and Robin Pearson will be facing off each other for the mayoral position in January. And then the four council candidates moving on to November's election are John Blotter, Stephanie Grady, John Glodowski, and Jeremy, make sure I get those right. Stephanie Grady, John Glodowski, and Jeremy Chernenko. Taking a look at some other local news now, a lost hiker on Rob's Trail near the Canyons Village was helped by instructions from a search and rescue helicopter yesterday. KPCW's Sean Higgins has more.
Summit County Sheriff's Lieutenant Andrew Wright says search and rescue was notified of a 24-year-old woman who got lost hiking on Rob's Trail shortly before 3 p.m. Monday afternoon. Coincidentally, a Utah Department of Public Safety helicopter was in the area and responded right away. Wright says the woman was hiking with her father before the two became separated. He says the woman told dispatch she was feeling faint and did not have food or water.
If someone's exhausted in the heat and doesn't have water or food, I would imagine she was probably exhausted and definitely probably getting into dehydration. But other than that, DPS helicopter was able to successfully guide her back to the trailhead, and we were able to reunite her with her father.
The woman did not require medical attention. The Park City Fire District has 7 stations throughout Summit County ready to respond to an emergency in the mountains. Wright says the best number to call if there is an emergency or you become lost on the trails is 911.
If someone feels like they're, in distress, whether it's because they're dehydrated, hungry, lost, injured, it doesn't matter what it may be, absolutely call 911 so that we can get resources there quickly.
Wright says the sooner a person in distress can call 911 during an emergency in the mountains, the better. Sean Higgins, KPCW News.
It's 8:14 now. Good morning. I'm Leslie Thatcher. It's the KPCW Local News Hour. Well, as children, especially those younger than 12 who are not eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine, head back to school, the debate over wearing masks continues. Joining me now in the studio to discuss what Park City's largest teachers union has to say on the matter, I have co-presidents of the Park City Education Association, Jake Jobe and Mary Morgan. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the CDC has labeled Summit County as a substantial transmission, and the Utah Department of Health, the CDC, and the American Academy of Pediatrics all recommending that the kids who cannot yet get a vaccine should be wearing a mask indoors. Both the Utah Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers Utah Union say they support the recommendation to wear masks. So what are you hearing from your membership about mask wearing?
We surveyed our membership about this, and they're definitely in support of masks in schools. I think the biggest thing for us is student safety and teacher safety. And the community has sacrificed a lot the last 18 months. Summit County in general getting vaccines, doing the right work, and we feel like masks in schools are a way to kind of push us past this pandemic. And so, surveying our members, the members that we've surveyed would like to see masks in schools, K-12. Part of that is because, our schools aren't silos. High school students have siblings who are elementary students. We have members who have children who are elementary students. And so our whole goal is to keep those kids safe and keep them in person. It's better to be in person than online. And we think masks are a great barrier to that, along with vaccines.
Yeah, so is that a unanimous from your membership?
Yeah, when we polled our membership, we had about half of them respond to the survey, which is a pretty good response from our members. About 73% were in support, and about 27% opposed. We know it's a divisive issue even within our membership, and that's why we polled, because we wanted to see where they stood on it.
Yeah, but I guess so. How do you respond then to the 27% who may not want to wear a mask?
Yeah, I know. I mean, one of the things that we've kind of told everyone is as a divisive issue, we're never going to have 100% approval on any one thing. All we can do is talk to our members, take in kind of the best info we have, the best evidence we have, and make a decision accordingly, and just try to do our best to keep our students safe and our members, our teachers safe as well.
Right. So because of the state law, nobody has to wear a mask, and so teachers are free to do what they want. Do you anticipate that the teachers will be wearing masks, or maybe just those 73%?
I can speak for myself and for Jake. I do know that we are both going to be wearing a mask in our classrooms. I have spoken to several teachers who also indicated that they would also be wearing a mask. So yeah, we're all in support of safety for students.
Yeah. What grade do you teach?
I teach choir, 6th and 7th grade at Ecker Hill.
Okay, so some of those may be under that
Correct.
vaccine age.
Yes.
And then I think you're at the high school?
Yeah, I teach English at the high school.
Yeah. Do we have any idea what the numbers are of students who may be vaccinated coming back to school?
We don't know specific to our high school students. We do know that in Summit County, we have some decent vaccination rates for that 12 to 15 age group, and then the 15 to 24 age group. It's I think we checked yesterday. I think it's sitting somewhere around 60%.
Mm-hmm.
So we predict that many of our students will be vaccinated, but also many will not be for a variety of reasons. We also share students with Treasure. So we have students from Treasure Mountain who are in 8th and 9th grade who come to the high school, and vice versa. So we're also thinking about kind of those students as well.
So are you hearing differing thoughts or concerns from the elementary teachers versus maybe the middle and high school teachers?
I would say that it's pretty standard across the board that all teachers and all of us at any level are concerned for the safety of children. That is our main focus.
Yeah, and it's different for the elementary, obviously, because none of their kids, qualify for the vaccine, and so they're in a position where their students can't make that choice. Whereas at the high school, we know that some of our kids are vaccinated, but I think in general the high school teachers' stance is we want to support our elementary colleagues in providing kind of the safest environment for them and for their students and for their children.
Yeah, there's been some chatter that there may be a loophole in House Bill 1007 that would allow the Summit County Council, on advice from the Health Department Director, to put a mask mandate back in place, especially for the younger students. So what's your response to that?
Well, we'll kind of see what the Health Department decides to do. We would urge them to do so because of student safety and because of teacher safety, and like I said, we know this is divisive, but also it's it comes out of love of the kids. People are passionate on both sides, and it's because it's about children, and we just want kids to be safe and to be able to learn effectively. So we would urge the Health Department to do that. I know Salt Lake County has issued one, I think last night. I think Dr. Dunn in Salt Lake County has done that. And we know it goes to the county council, and we're talking to them as well. So that's what we would hope from the health department.
Yeah. So have you been informed then how that decision would be made?
In terms of the specifics of the decision?
Yeah.
We know kind of the order of operations, so to speak, as we've talked to kind of different stakeholders about how that would play out. We don't know who would necessarily support it and who wouldn't from county level at the health department, at the county council. What we're trying to do is just kind of advocate for our members and kind of show where we stand on it. But no, we're not certain where the county or the health department stands specifically with that.
Okay. And then, we talked, maybe we don't really know with the students who have been vaccinated. What about the teachers? Do we know who has and who hasn't?
So we haven't specifically asked our teachers, especially since the vaccine, we're still waiting for FDA approval and those kinds of things fully on the vaccine. And so we haven't asked our teachers at this point. We know many of our teachers are vaccinated just from anecdotal experience, talking to people and that kind of thing, but we don't know for sure.
And not required to be?
No, not at this time.
Yeah. So in the event that we did see a number of children come down with COVID-19, what is the school closure trigger here? I mean, where students would be forced to go back to online learning?
So I think the major tool right now is the Test to Stay program, which we used at the high school last year, and was really effective. It was successful, and big kudos to the district for and our school admin at the high school for how they ran that, and the parent volunteers for getting that done. Right now, from what I understand, is if you have a 30 positive cases in a 14-day period for the size of our schools, that would trigger then a Test to Stay program. And the district would bring in folks to run that Test to Stay program. In terms of closing schools, we're really trying to keep them open. I mean, that's the goal. We know students learn better in person. We know the mental health issues of students trying to be at home. Not every student has a good learning environment at home. So ultimately, we'd like to keep them in person, and I think Test to Stay is a good way to do that. And that's kind of why we're here, is we feel like masks are a good way to prevent having to close schools.
Yeah. So what do we know about our students coming back? I mean, are they ready to start where they picked off, or do we have some catching up to do?
Well, of course, we have some remediation to do with students. We always do, especially after the summer. But we have I think our teachers have done a phenomenal job in the district as well of supporting students in their academic learning and moving forward in a positive direction.
Yeah, I think kids are excited, and I think teachers are excited. I mean, last year was hard. It was hard for the community. It was hard for the district. We've been in constant communication with district level folks, and I think people are ready to keep moving forward, right? And I think students are excited to kind of get back into it.
Yeah. And have you heard from students at all? I mean, are there students as adamant against not wearing a mask as maybe their parents are?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of conversation about this at the high school last year. I think students, the high school is different than the elementary, right? I mean, those high school students, they're becoming adults and making their decisions, and they're reading the news and that kind of thing. I think that a lot of the kids will make that choice, and some of the kids would rather not. And I think that's part of the beauty of the high schools. They get to have that conversation. But also, I think that it's easier for the students if there is just kind of a straight rule that says, hey, we're going to wear a mask, because then there's not that pressure. You just wear it and you follow the rule, and it's easy.
Yeah.
And I would say that students are even at the middle school level, very concerned about their safety and the safety of others.
And do you think having that mask mandate in place last year made a difference in keeping kids safe?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really do. The kids did a surprisingly good job at wearing their masks. It's not perfect, but they really committed to it. And I do think it was one of the reasons we had such a successful year. I know at the end of the year, a lot of the teachers were like, wow, that went better than I think we could have hoped for. And I think largely that's on students for doing the right thing and parents for doing the right thing in the district. But yeah, I think students care about that, and I think it made a huge difference last year in our schools.
Yeah. Apparently, the Summit County Health Department could be appearing before the State Board of Education meeting next week, that the county may be asking for some kind of indemnification from overruling the state legislature if, in fact, a mask mandate were to be voted on or so. I mean, would you be involved in that meeting at all?
I'm not sure. We've contacted the health department. I know there's been kind of a shakeup there. I know Rich Bullough is retiring and moving some new people into some new positions. So I'm not sure. That's something we have to look into.
Yeah. And are you hearing from other districts speaking out with concerns? Or are they just leaving it in the hands of, county and state officials?
I think we met with all the Eastern Region districts recently as part of our association with UEA, North Summit, South Summit, Duchesne, some of those places. And they didn't have any plans at the time to push for masks. It was also a number of weeks ago, and we're kind of in a different spot. I think the Delta variant has made this change pretty rapidly. So we have not talked to them recently, but we did meet with them about a month ago.
Yeah, and have you happened to reach out to our local representatives? We've got, of course, Kara Birkeland, Representative Mike Kohler, and Senator Ron Winterton.
We've been focused mostly on county level folks at the moment, just because it's such a county issue. that's been kind of our focus, and establishing those relationships. Mary and I are brand new to this, and Aaron Webb, our former co-president, took a new job in Salt Lake. So within the last 10 days, we've been kind of going through this process of both building relationships and also trying to advocate for our members. And so we focus on the very local level, Summit County, because we feel like that's at the moment where we can build the strongest relationships.
Yeah, I think you may have lost a teacher or two last year, given that they had, compromised people at home and they just didn't want to make that risk. Do we have something similar that could happen this school year as well?
I haven't heard of that in particular for this year. I know it for certain happened last year. And I had colleagues who I know left for that reason. I think people are much more, we've actually polled our members, are much more comfortable this year because of the vaccine. It's made people feel better about the situation, and also just that we've had a year to work with COVID. And so I think people are feeling more confident in the way their classrooms function and the mitigations we have in place, although we also had masks last year, and I think that's kind of a sticking point for some people.
All right, so no talk about perhaps doing a walkout on this, just on this issue?
No talks about that, no.
Okay, it's not that important, but important?
Yeah, we, like I said, we've kind of taken the stance we want to work with kind of local stakeholders, and the district's been very receptive to us, and the counties talk to us and so on, and I think that at this point is the most effective tool for us. Okay,
and I guess just finally, on other topics, any other issues you are working on? I mean, I think you've got a contract in place, the master development. Those negotiations don't have to happen for another year?
Yeah, so no major negotiations. I know we have the district's working on a bond, and that's something we'll continue to kind of work with the district on, and work with our members on that issue, and that's certainly coming up for school expansion and facilities and those kinds of things. That's probably our biggest focus right now, outside of the mask issue and COVID. That's definitely pressing, just because school starts next week, so that's kind of our big focus.
Yeah, you guys go back to work Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got 3 days before kids return.
Right.
All right. Anything else you wanted to mention?
I think just to say that, like I said, we're here because we want to support students and families in Summit County and our teachers and keep them safe. And like I said, we know that it's a divisive topic, and we're just trying to do our best to keep people safe and keep kids in school, and we know that our members are going to step up to the plate here next week and do their best to educate students, like they always do. So we appreciate them. We appreciate the district for helping us on this issue.
Yes, and just to keep everybody healthy.
All right, Jake Jobe, Mary Morgan are the new co-presidents of the Park City Education Association. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Local News Hour here on KPCW. It's 8:30 now. Good morning. I'm Leslie Thatcher. This is the KPCW Local News Hour. Well, New York Times bestselling author Stephanie Lamb will be presenting at the Park City Eccles Center Saturday night. She joins me now on the phone. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so maybe just kind of preview. I mean, what are going to be your topics of presentation? Hard work, systemic class barriers, inequality?
I'm still honestly deciding that. It's been a while since I've done an in-person keynote, so I need to dust it off and revise. But I mean, I mostly focus on social and economic justice. It's an advocacy for people who live in the margins and really don't have a lot of safety net programs to help them actually get out of the margins.
Yeah, so your debut memoir is Made, Hard Work, Low Pay, and a Mother's Will to Survive. In the book, you lay out in very forensic detail how the working poor get through their lives. So can you kind of give us the Reader's Digest version of that?
Well, I think the term working poor is very telling, because poor people work harder than anybody. They work often 2 or 3 jobs, and it's minimum wage, and that is usually less than $10 an hour. So $7.25 is the federal minimum wage still, and it's very hard to eke out an existence, especially if you have children, because childcare costs are through the roof, and it's almost impossible. I would say it is impossible, but somehow they make it work to survive.
Yeah, you decided to work as a housekeeper. Basically, that was the only thing you thought you could do, having a young child?
It was the only thing I could do. I spent a year applying for jobs, and nobody wanted to hire me because I was a single mom, or I didn't have the experience or education. This was also right after the recession, and the job market was pretty bleak at that time. So house cleaning just worked because I could do it during daycare hours, which were, the traditional 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Yeah. And how far did you go through school to get through high school?
Previous to
Yes.
when I had my daughter, I dabbled in college. I think I was probably technically a sophomore by that time, but I hadn't really taken it seriously. Except for, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I had to pay for college myself, so it was more of a exploratory period of my early 20s.
Yeah, and I think part of your story is that you just didn't have a lot of support from your family?
No, not at all. I mean, they just couldn't, and a lot of them just wouldn't. And they are very blue-collar background, and I would say against government assistance programs. And so it's kind of a you work hard and don't accept handouts type of mentality.
And so they weren't willing to give you a handout then, huh?
I wouldn't call it a handout for my family, but yeah, they were very hesitant, and sometimes just said no.
Because the fact that you had a young, I mean, their granddaughter maybe in some cases, or their niece, or their niece and others.
Yeah, I was really shocked. I deliberately moved to that area because we were living in Port Townsend, which was an area where I had a lot of resources, just because the population was a lot lower. And I deliberately moved back to the Skagit Valley, which is just north of Seattle, because my family goes back there for 6 or 7 generations. And I thought I was immersing my daughter in to, Thanksgivings and Easters, and I was, but there was nothing in between. And it was probably the most heartbreaking thing that I experienced, just not only as a parent, but as a family member, as a child. And I really wanted that for her, and it just didn't happen.
It was also interesting how you would write about how cautious you had to be, whether or not you could accept a job. I mean, you did precise calculations in terms of how far it would take you to drive and how much that would cost you in gas, and just whether or not it was worth it?
Yeah, I mean, I when it came down to it, I made, I probably brought home $5 or $6 an hour. And so when you're having to drive an hour to a job, that cuts into your wages. And sometimes if it's a 2-hour house and you have to drive an hour, then it's just not, when you add in childcare and all of that, it's not really worth the job to go out there. Especially I had a job like that, and they were a no-show a couple of times. So I lost on the time and gas money, and for nothing. And, my job did not pay for gas, so, or travel expenses to and from work. So it was a real loss at that time, because $10 could mean that I couldn't pay rent.
Yeah. And you also explain in very clear language what it's like to be poor. You'll be talking to a pretty well-off community here on Saturday night. What do you want them to know?
Boy, there are so many stigmas surrounding people in poverty, and that's really a defense mechanism. I mean, the more blame that we put on people in that situation, the less we feel like it could happen to us. And I think the last year of, people suddenly realizing I can't work anymore. What am I going to do? And discovering that it is so easy to slip to a place where you can't afford groceries. I think that's been really humbling and eye-opening for a lot of people. And I hope that breeds some empathy and compassion for the people that we have expected to cook our food and deliver our groceries for the last 18 months, because they are the ones who are still out there fighting to survive on these low wages. And it's a very, very hard life. And it's all encompassing. It is every single social situation you are reminded that you are less than. And I just, now that I am living a completely different life, I try very hard to remember what that was like, and to remember what it was like to stuff toilet paper into your pockets because you don't have any at home and you just need some for that night. And just to always be thinking about what can I do to survive.
As you noted, so many people work their tails off and just can never get ahead, and yet then chastised for owning a cell phone, which is pretty much a minimum requirement for getting a job these days. What were some of your experiences, personal experiences? I mean, when people judged you like that?
Oh, goodness. I don't know if I was judged directly. I did not look the part. I think that's one of the things of why my story has been really popular is I am a very likable poor person. Like I am very plain-faced and white and educated and articulate and, all the things that we like to see in people, basically, and the types of people that we listen to normally. And so people talked around me because they did not assume that I was a poor person on food stamps. And so I heard a lot of talk about people using food stamps and their kids were dressed really nice, or they got into a really nice car, or, why should we help them? They're just taking advantage of the situation. And so I know that that's out there. And I still see it and hear it just, in our legislators. They're assuming that people don't want to work and stay on unemployment when that's not the case at all. People want living wages. So I think, the types of things that I experienced directly were, little snide comments that were very offhand. But I can't remember right now anything other than that.
Yeah. Well, maybe talk just a bit about this meritocracy myth. I mean, this notion that people get ahead based on their own accomplishments rather than really the opportunities they've been provided in life, like their parents' social class or their grandmother's trust fund.
Oh, the bootstrap myth. I think the thing that is really dangerous about that is, so the myth is that if you work hard, you'll make it. But the flip side to that is if you're not making it, then you're simply just not working hard enough. And I believed that very, very much, because I thought it was my fault in some way, because I was working as hard as I could. I worked every minute that I could. And I could not get ahead. I could barely pay rent on, at the time it was a studio apartment for $525 a month, which, now sounds unheard of, but I could barely pay the rent. And I was in my late 20s and I was looking around at all my friends and they had cars and houses and, but over the years, I guess, like when I got to college in Montana, I kind of learned that, their parents paid for that down payment on the house. Their parents got them a car for graduating college. Their parents paid for college. I didn't even know that those invisible support systems were there for the most part because it was just so foreign to me.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about how difficult and really disgusting it is to be a maid. And I can say that. I spent my first winter here in Park City as a maid. And just, it's pretty gross, right? To have to clean up other people's messes. And I have to read this recent tweet of yours because it really really says a lot. I mean, it's you. I'm quoting you here now. About to leave to pay for someone to deep clean my teeth. So naturally, I make sure to brush, floss, and use mouthwash first. You should use the same way of thinking when paying someone to clean your house. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, that tweet was kind of entertaining from the responses. I mean, if you have a lot of stuff on your countertops, then the person that you hire to clean your house is going to have to spend, 3 or 4 minutes to pick everything up and put it back so that they can wipe the surface underneath. Their job is to wipe the surfaces, not pick up whatever stuff you have left around the house. I mean, unless you have done that, but if you hire just a normal cleaning service or a person who cleans a lot of houses, they don't consider that their job. And so I was told to, neatly stack dirty dishes, put them on the counter, clean the sink, and then put the dishes back. But the minute that I spent, or the 2 minutes that I spent dealing with the dishes, that meant that I couldn't focus on another area like I should have. And I basically couldn't do my job as well if I had to pick up a bunch of stuff around the house. And I think, people get a little upset about that, or they seem to from the tweet, because, we shouldn't expect someone to pick up for a service that is a very privileged, thing for them to have, when really it's just respecting the person that's coming into your house. I mean, they have a certain amount of time to clean your house. And from a consumer's perspective, you want them to do as good of a job as they can in that amount of time. And from the cleaner's perspective, they need to be in and out. Like, as much time as they have is as much time as they have. And so if they don't do all of the things in the time that they have allotted for your house, then you might complain, or they might lose their job. And it's that cutthroat. It is, there were times that I had to go back and dust vanity lights because I had missed them because the bathroom was a mess. So it's common courtesy to me. It's just respect and common decency for your fellow human being. There's no less dignity in that human being coming into your house and cleaning your house because of the job that they're doing and because of the job that you have. You are both equal human beings, and you should treat each other accordingly.
Well, any future projects that you're working on now?
Yeah, I have another book that I'm working on. It's called Class. It is a narrative nonfiction, so it's more reported and not straight up memoir. And it just talks about my experience with mainly getting kicked off of food stamps when I was in college because I wasn't meeting the work requirements. And it just kind of goes from there and talks about how higher education is inaccessible for low-income people.
Well, it sounds like we're, I guess, all glad to hear that you've kind of pulled yourself out of all of that, and you'll be at the Park City Eccles Center Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available online at parkcityinstitute.org or call the box office 435-655-3114. Stephanie, thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Well, after 11 years at the helm of the Summit County Health Department, Director Rich Bulla announcing in May that he would be retiring August 20th. He joins me now on the phone. Good morning, Rich.
Good morning, Leslie.
Let's just start there before we delve into the controversy. You've had a career for almost 30 years in public health, and I guess a pandemic's a really great place to end it, huh?
I don't know if I'd necessarily wish that on anybody, but our community, as I've said many, many times, has really been remarkable through all of this, and for me, that absolutely has been a highlight of my career. Just seeing the way that folks have rallied, not just from the early days when we were issuing orders, et cetera, but really driving forward the incredibly high vaccination rates that we have. It's the number of volunteers that came out. It's really been a remarkable thing to see, and remarkable to see our team rally, our county and community team throughout every process. Every step of this has been really impressive. So it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, now you had planned to retire last year, but stuck with it because you wanted to see this thing through. Now we see the numbers surging again, but you're still going to walk away.
Yeah, I honestly, for multiple reasons, I think it's time to step away. And I feel really good about where the health department is, with the appointment of Phil Bondurant and the hiring of Shelley Worley as deputy. Incredibly good team in place. The county team is still in place. All the partnerships are in place. We've got our data systems going. We're ready to increasingly ramp up contact tracing, ready for a new surge of vaccines. We're anticipating probably in at least some population booster doses being available. We're hearing that relatively soon the Pfizer vaccine will be approved for under 12. And then obviously we're still trying to get doses in the arms of people that for one reason or another have been reluctant so far. So I feel good about where we are, and I think it's a good time to turn the page and let some new leaders lead.
Yeah. So let's just talk quickly about how this ends, or does it? I mean, it sounds like, just like the seasonal flu, that COVID-19 will be with us forever, constantly mutating.
I believe so, and I think that's actually been what the experts in communicable disease and virology and other specialties have been saying the entire time. This thing is here to stay. There probably will be a day when we normalize it as far as us just getting vaccines on a seasonal basis, and we get used to living with it. I'll share a call that I had with a scientist at the University of Utah a year ago last March, when we knew that COVID was creeping across the globe and ultimately heading for Summit County. He told me that flu, we've been lucky that we haven't had a major flu pandemic, and every once in a while you have a variant of the flu that kills a lot of people. And we know about the 1917 pandemic, et cetera, and of course there weren't vaccines available then. But we talked about the flu. We talked about deadly outbreaks of the flu, and he said that is what we'll see with COVID. And there'll be years when it isn't bad, and there'll be years when it peaks. And so I think that's what we're going to see as some sense of normalcy moving forward.
So basically, the flu virus at one point started as a coronavirus?
Not quite a coronavirus, but it's a pretty similar process. But the spike protein is actually quite different.
Okay. Well, let's move on here. I mean, as we're seeing it spread here again, we're seeing younger kids getting hit, some getting very sick from COVID. That has prompted the Salt Lake County Council to question whether there is an end run around House Bill 1007, the bill that eliminated a school district's power to enforce its own mask mandates. So it sounds like the bill did give local officials some leeway, but what I'm hearing is that Deputy County Attorney Dave Thomas says otherwise.
Well, I don't want to get into the specifics of that, but you heard the governor. I'll give a little bit of detail here in a second. You heard the governor state publicly in a press conference last couple of weeks that local health districts can issue, local health officers with the county manager and the elected, in this case it would be a county council, can issue mandates in schools. And our legal team believes a little bit differently. They believe there might be a conflict with the state constitution there. There are apparently some other counties that have a similar view. And so we're trying to work through a process right now so that we do have in our arsenal of tools to address this, the ability to do targeted face covering orders in schools. So, we're working with our partners, State Office of Education, State School Board, et cetera, to get a process lined up that we're comfortable with that allows us to take preventive measures there. So we're just not quite there yet. The really important take-home message, I think, for everybody right now is that our data don't support a wide mask order right now. Our numbers in Summit County remain quite good. We're seeing about 5 cases a day. Positivity rate is just above 5%. Today it's 5.4. That's about half of what it is in the state. It's less than half of what it is in Wasatch County. We're doing quite well here, and that is because of the high vaccination rates. So that's the important take-home message.
So,
we're monitoring the data. We don't feel that right now we're justified in a wide mask order.
All right. So you will or you will not pursue this?
Well, we are pursuing a process. So if there comes a day when the data, and we're monitoring the data, obviously daily, if there comes a time when we feel the data support mask orders, we want to have the ability to do that. And so we're trying to work through a process that can provide that ability.
Well, it sounds like that the county had planned to show up to the next State Board of Education meeting next week to ask for some kind of indemnification? What does that mean?
We do have a meeting with Sid Dixon. I don't know that we have a State Board of Education meeting. I've not heard that. We do have a meeting with the state superintendent to discuss a possible process. And in essence, we want to make sure that we have the buy-in of the State Board of Education, which is what the state constitution, we believe, says. So, again, we're monitoring the data. We're trying to refine a process so that we're not caught off guard, so that we can act if we need to act. And if that day comes, we want to have that tool in our arsenal.
Okay, so that process then you believe would give the county the authority to enact another mask mandate if in fact the data proves so.
Well, that's our goal. Again, we want to have mitigative measures. Last year, the state of Utah did the best probably of any state in the country, keeping schools open. And part of that process was having a mask mandate in place. And so we don't know if we're going to need it or not. But what we don't want to find is that, a month down the road or 2 months or 3 months, whenever that is, and perhaps we've got a surge going on in a school, we don't have that tool in the quiver to be able to address that surge. The goal is always going to be to keep students in school. If you have a major outbreak going, how do you do that without some mitigative tools at your disposal?
Yeah. So do we have any data showing any impacts of young children from wearing masks? I mean, I've seen signs, saying that mask wearing is child abuse.
Yeah. There's been a lot of signs of different sorts going around. What we found is obviously that, this is an emotional issue. I frankly don't quite understand all of the emotion and the language tying mask wearing mandates to freedom. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and freedom carries with it responsibility. And, that's, to me, it's just common sense that the people would want to mitigate risk, not just for themselves, but for each other and for others. So to your specific question, almost no. There are a few studies that suggest that with certain conditions, there should be exemptions. And those exemptions, in fact, have been written into law. They were part of the school mandate last year. So the data are not real sound. There are some examples where there should be exemptions. And then, of course, it's really hard to do a study where you can assess the individual impact on the social perspective of being a child. And do masks impact that? They might. And so I don't want to fault the parents for wanting the best for the parents. We all do. But there are definitely a lack of studies suggesting that there's any significant harm done by a child wearing a mask.
And are the North and South Summit school districts at any greater risk due to their vaccination levels being lower than here in the Park City School District?
Great question. The answer is yes, although South Summit's vaccine uptake rate is pretty good. And we've met with all three superintendents, Phil Bondurant and I did, and many other members of the team, and talked through the process of what this year looks like. We're providing additional resources to try to allow them to manage as best they can. Again, right now it's up to them. There are certain mitigative measures in place that they'll continue, things like the cleaning and air scrubbing and those things. But North Summit, I'll just be real honest, that is my primary concern. Their uptake has not been very good among children 12 to 15-year-old. And right now they're not really driving our county cases. Cases on the east side are about the same as they are on the west side per capita. But there's been times recently where the cases on the east side of the county have been about 3 times higher than the west side. And that almost certainly is partly due to lower rates of vaccine uptake, especially in North Summit. So for me, that's my primary concern is North Summit School District and what that looks like when they reconvene.
And Salt Lake County Public Health Director Dr. Angela Dunn is projecting that there could be a child hospitalized every other day under the mask restrictions. That's pretty bleak. And the closure policy here in our schools then, I mean, do we just have that trigger of 30 positive cases over a 2-week period, I believe?
And that actually is not a closure policy. That is, it's test to stay is what it's being called. And so what the current policy is statewide, that when a school hits 30 cases, everybody needs to be tested, and it's got to be an ongoing testing. And, in essence, they are separated if they're positive. But that doesn't kick into place until in schools greater than 1,500, it's 2%, and in schools less than 1,500, it's 30 cases. So that's a significant restriction, and by that I mean 30 cases is probably too high in my opinion. If you think about last year, the trigger for going to remote learning was 15 cases in a school, or 1%. So it's a probably too lenient of a restriction in my view. 30 cases in a single school is a very significant outbreak. So that's concerning to me.
Okay. I've got just a minute left here. Rich, anything else you want to say before we kind of conclude our final interview here as you being health director?
I just want to say thanks to the community. Again, for me, that's been a highlight. Thanks to the council, the Board of Health, Tom Fisher. I'm telling you, the support that he gives county staff is pretty remarkable. Janny Young, a lot of people I could thank, but ultimately it's the community that has rallied around this. And as you know, our vaccine rates in Utah are Summit County compared to Utah, we're an outlier. We're well above the state average, and that's one of the reasons that our numbers are good. So I just encourage people, get a vaccine. They're safe, they're effective. It is the best tool to prevent you from getting COVID. And if you do get it, if you're vaccinated, you don't get as sick. And the data are very sound around that. So continue to do what you can do, get a vaccine, and thanks to everybody.
All right. Thank you, too, for your great service, Rich. Appreciate it. You've been listening to the Local News Hour here on KPCW. This is KPCW Park City. Time for news.